Welcome to Seacoast Real Estate Academy. Today in our Laws and Rules series, this is the second part of going over handling trust funds. Broker in charge responsible for trust accounts. Rule A.0117, Rule A.0110G4, and Rule A.0117A requires a broker to maintain complete records showing the deposit, maintenance and withdrawal of money belonging to the broker's principals or held in escrow or in trust for the broker's principals. Paragraph H of that rule also provides that the Commission may inspect trust account records periodically without prior notice and whenever the records are pertinent to investigation of a complaint against all licensee. Rule A.0110G4 defines this requirement by specifying that a broker in charge is responsible for the proper maintenance of real estate trust accounts and records pertaining thereto. Custodian of trust account records other than the broker in charge. While a broker in charge may transfer possession of trust money to a bookkeeper, secretary, or some other clerical employee to record and deposit the funds in a trust account and to maintain trust account records, the broker in charge nonetheless remains responsible for the care and custody of such funds. Brokers in charge should closely and diligently supervise the acts of all persons having access to the trust account, since final accountability for the accuracy and integrity of the account rests with the broker in charge. Access to trust money should be limited and carefully controlled. Disbursement of earnest money. Rule A.0116E. This rule permits a broker in charge to transfer an earnest money deposit from his or her trust account to the closing attorney or other settlement agent not more than 10 days prior to the anticipated settlement date. Earnest money may not be disbursed prior to settlement for any other purpose without the written consent of the parties. Thus, earnest money may not be used for the broker to pay for inspection reports or other services on behalf of the buyer prior to settlement without the written consent of the seller and vice versa. Disputed trust funds. Rule A.0116D addresses disputed trust funds as follows. In the event of a dispute between buyer and seller or landlord and tenant over the return or forfeiture of any deposit other than a residential tenant security deposit held by a broker, the broker shall retain said deposit in a trust or escrow account until the broker has obtained a written release from the parties, consenting to its disposition, or until disbursement is ordered by a court of competent jurisdiction. The rule also references the GS 93A-12 procedures for depositing disputed funds with the clerk of court, as well as when one party abandons his or her claim to the disputed funds. However, these procedures are beyond the scope of these materials and are more important for brokers in charge to know. The handling of trust money. Rule A.0116A, B, and G. The general rule is that all trust monies received by a licensee must be deposited in a trust account within 3 banking days of receipt. An exception would be earnest money received with offers to purchase, and tenant security deposits in connection with leases must be deposited in a trust account not later than 3 banking days following acceptance of the offer to purchase or lease agreement, unless the deposit is tendered in cash, in which event it must be deposited within 3 banking days following receipt, even if the contract or lease has not been accepted. In part, this is because cash is immediately available and may be refunded within a day of receipt, unlike checks, which may require a few days to clear. Understand that a broker may choose to immediately deposit a check received for an earnest money deposit or tenant security deposit and is not required to wait until contract acceptance unless so instructed by the buyer or tenant. Of course, early deposit may cause problems if the offer to purchase or lease is not accepted and the prospective buyer or tenant understandably wants their deposit to be immediately returned. The date of acceptance should be shown in the purchase or lease agreement to determine when the 3 banking days begins. Receipt of trust money by provisional broker. Rule A.0116b1 and 2 and Rule A.1808. All trust money received by a provisional broker must be delivered immediately to the provisional broker's broker in charge. In other words, provisional brokers may not retain or hold trust money any longer than absolutely necessary to deliver the trust money to his or her broker in charge. Similarly, trust monies received by a non-resident limited commercial broker are to be delivered immediately to and held by the resident North Carolina broker with whom the non-resident is affiliated. Brokers in charge should have written policies that clearly state the procedures to be followed when any agent affiliated with the company, whether a provisional or non-provisional broker, receives trust monies. Handling option money and due diligence fee. Rule A.0116b4. This rule states in part, a broker may accept custody of a check or other negotiable instrument made payable to the seller of real property as payment for an option or due diligence fee, but only for the purpose of delivering the instrument to the seller. While the instrument is in the custody of the broker shall, according to the instructions of the buyer, either deliver it to the seller or return it to the buyer. The broker shall safeguard the instrument and shall be responsible to the parties on the instrument for its safe delivery as required by this rule. A broker shall not retain such an instrument for more than 3 business days after the acceptance of the option or other sales contract. The rule is basically self-explanatory. In the rule, custody means possession. Recall that option money or a due diligence fee is paid directly to the seller, to whom the check is written as payee, and so it is not appropriate for a broker to deposit these checks into his or her trust account, because the check is not payable to the broker or real estate company, as is the case with earnest money checks. Either the listing agent or buyer's agent may hold the check or negotiable instrument until negotiations are completed and a contract is formed, at which point the check should be delivered to the seller as soon as possible. If, however, a buyer for some reason gives a broker cash for the option money or due diligence fee, then the broker must immediately deposit the cash in his or her trust account pending contract formation, as cash must always be deposited into a trust account within 3 banking days of receipt. No exceptions. If the parties enter into a contract, then the broker would write a check from the trust account payable to the seller, noting in the memo section and trust account records that it is for the option fee or due diligence fee from the buyer. Safeguarding trust money. Improper use of trust money. Rule A.0116g. This rule places on every licensee the responsibility to safeguard the money or property of others coming into his or her possession, according to the requirements of the license law and commission rules. In addition, it states that a broker shall not convert the money or property of others to his or her own use, apply such money or property to a purpose other than that for which it was intended, or permit or assist any other person in the conversion or misapplication of such money or property. If you like this video, feel free to share it with a friend. For more real estate education content, please subscribe to the channel. From all of us at Seacoast Real Estate Academy, thank you for watching.